You have to refuse to quit for more than 30 minutes. I went from being a multimillionaire to have a negative net worth. Borrowers are liars and lenders are worse.
Whatever of the questions that I can remember.
The big black bug, get the big black bear. Build bigger and better rubber baby buggy bumpers. Okay.
You ready?
I'm ready.
Thank you for taking the time. So I pulled you out of a seminar that we're a part of to interview you, so I appreciate you taking the time.
My pleasure.
I was chasing you down. I was waiting. So I'm really excited to be here with you. I really admire you. I am learning from you right now, so I am one of your students.
Thank you. You're very kind.
Really grateful for that. And you have so much experience, so much wisdom in real estate. You're an attorney.
Yep.
You've been a part of influencing even legislature.
Yep.
You are an investor over 30 years. And I'd like your philosophy and how you do business. And you own a lot of rentals. You're a part of over 178 properties that you own.
178, 180 doors, something like that, yeah.
We lost count.
If I had to, it'd take me a while to count them, yes.
Yeah.
Let me give you a little bit of background on me, fill in the gaps. I've been a lawyer in the state of Ohio now, licensed only in the state of Ohio. I'm in my 34th year. I've been a part-time real estate investor for 31 years. I got inspired to do real estate investing by two of my uncles, one of whom never got past the 8th grade, learning disability, a little bit of a speech impediment, but otherwise brilliant. When he came out of the Navy, he started in Southern California, working at the University of California, Los Angeles, bought a home, figured out how to fix it up and resell it and make some money, and then he would just buy and build and rent. He would build homes, one here, one there, do air conditioning on the side, and by the time he moved out of Southern California, he was worth over $10 million. And today he has a very lucrative free and clear portfolio in Frisco, Texas, lives way beneath his means, and he's been my huge inspiration and encouragement, because for a guy that never got past the 8th grade, a guy that has struggles with dyslexia and reading abilities can do it. Anybody can do it. He just has the one thing that you absolutely have to have. You have to have a relentless desire to succeed. You have to refuse to quit for more than 30 minutes. You're allowed to quit for 30 minutes when something really goes horribly wrong. You can cry, you can do whatever you want to do, but 30 minutes later, you're back at it.
I like that philosophy, yeah.
30 minutes later, you're back at it, yeah. And I've had those moments, yes.
I know you were a practicing attorney for a really long time. Were you investing at the same time?
Yes, I started working on real estate for myself. Very first home I bought was a multifamily. So I did house hacking before it was vogue.
Popular.
Yeah, and then I did BRRR before anybody could call it BRRR. And I made some mistakes there, so we'll talk about that. But I started out just knowing that I was swapping hours for dollars as an attorney. Yeah, they were good dollars, but it was burning me out. And so I knew I had to build some long-term wealth. And I have, over time, made a bunch of mistakes, built some wealth, lost it, built it back up, lost it, built it back up, and don't plan on losing it this time. Yeah.
Hopefully this is the time.
Yeah, I mean, the 2008 crash really hurt me. I went from being a multimillionaire to have a negative net worth, and then I went through a very unwanted, painful divorce, and that cost me 7 figures plus, so yeah.
Mm-hmm. The hard lessons in life.
Yeah.
So you mentioned the financial crisis and you being affected by that specifically. Yes. What were some of the key lessons you learned during that time?
I was BRRRing going into that, what we call BRRRing now.
Which for some people that don't know what a BRRRR
that's
is.
to buy, to renovate, then to rent, and then to refinance, and then to go repeat it somewhere else. And I at one time had 5 contiguous houses on the same street, and I lived in the middle of them. Okay? And so people kind of like joked I was just like the mayor of that part of the street, because I literally owned 5 houses that all were connected, and everybody would come over and pay rent at the beginning of the month to me, so on. But I over-leveraged.
Jeff, the landlord lives here, guys. Go knock on this door.
Yeah, I mean there were times on Friday, like a Friday at the beginning of the month, that I couldn't eat dinner because people kept coming over and paying rent. So, but whatever. I learned not to ever let that happen again. So, but I over-leveraged. And then when the market values in Cleveland plummeted, because I was doing this in Cleveland, Ohio, when the market values plummeted, I was competing against landlords that weren't making their payments anymore, and I had to, because I had to protect my law license. It was a real challenge. But we got through it. I got through it because at that same time I was also doing some education and training and speaking, and I pioneered a new way to do short sale transactions, and that took over by wildfire. That took me from being just an average attorney to suddenly I was a national figure.
Wow.
In the real estate space, and probably between 25 and 30,000 investors used my documents to do a couple 100,000 short sale transactions. So that took me from nowhere to a lot of places. Then I started focusing on self-directed IRAs, asset protection stuff, and started getting a lot better at my own things. All this time I'm still practicing law, still in the courtroom on a regular basis. I've done 20 jury trials.
Jesus.
2 of them were criminal, 18 were civil. So I'm just going to tell you, if somebody wants to talk about asset protection, just ask them, how many jury trials do you have?
Yep.
And how many of those trials that you've done or cases you've done have gone up to the highest court in your state where you've changed the law? I've got that 3 times. And then I've had some appellate cases where they've changed the law twice. So I've got 5 times I've changed the law in the state of Ohio.
That's impressive.
So I've got some experience in what it's like to pick juries, go through the appeal process, all that stuff. So there's a lot of things I have that offer in that area. And I do a lot of that through a free email newsletter at watsoninvested.com, watsoninvested.com. And then I just kept growing and learning, and I surrounded myself with great teachers. There are people like in this room that I learn from, and there are people that have taught the other people in this room that I learn from. And some of my teachers, unfortunately, have passed away, but I still, owe a huge debt of gratitude to them. And some of them are still alive, and I'm going to hang out with Pete Fortunato tomorrow morning, okay? And I'll meet with some other ones on Tuesday morning. So I'm around real estate investors 3, 4, 5 times a week, because it's like AA. You got to be around your people to keep you supported and going. And then I've learned from my mistakes, and I've learned from helping other investors fix their problems as well. And so you have to create within yourself 2 things. You have to be very clear about what your end goal is. It's not about money. It's not about freedom. It's what does that ideal perfect day look like? When my friend David Peters helped me with that, to where I got very clear about what my peace and freedom look like, that was a huge transition for me. It made it very clear what I was going for, because now I look at every opportunity, every deal. Does this get me closer to my peace and freedom or draw me away from? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, once you're very clear about what your ultimate objective is, I mean, not just, I want to travel. When do you want to travel? Where do you want to go? How long do you want to be there? How are you going to get there? What are you going to stay? Where are you going to go? Get very specific, because the more specific it is, the more concrete it is, and then you can start making really actionable plans to get to that goal. Don't put the specific goal in writing until you have that vision, I mean, I know what I want my ideal perfect day to look like, beginning at 5 or 6 a.m., going until the end of the day.
Would you say you've lived that day already?
No, not yet. I'm one segment away from that.
Okay, so you're almost there.
I'm almost there.
I like that concept.
I'm in the geographic area that I want. I'm around the people I want. There's one key component still missing. Okay, and we'll get there.
Yeah. I mean, you're almost there. I like the idea of crafting your perfect day and then working your goals and your decisions based off of that. I think a lot of people make decisions based on greed or this idealized version of what their life should look like, versus being very clear on what that is for them and then working towards that.
Right. Yeah. So figure out what it costs to live that ideal perfect day. Multiply that times 31. That is your number. Now start doing deals, building assets that will give you that number on a monthly basis, irrespective of whether you work at it 1 hour or 10 hours that month. Then you're free. Then you have your peace and freedom.
You are an attorney, so you see the worst in people. And you
Unfortunately.
And you work with a lot of real estate investors, really well-known real estate investors, so I'm sure you've seen it all. Now, give us some hard-hitting lessons. What have you learned? What are the biggest mistakes that you've seen, and what are some lessons from those mistakes with regards to investment deals?
Sure. I'm going to put it to you this way. we've heard the phrase often many times that buyers are liars and sellers are worse. And the same thing applies to borrowers and lenders. Borrowers are liars and lenders are worse. So you've got to be prepared for knowing what's really going on. If you're borrowing money in a real estate deal, you must be in control of both the primary, secondary, and tertiary exit strategies.
Okay.
Now that's if you need to rewind that. But you the borrower, have to be in control of both the primary, secondary, and tertiary exit strategy from the deal. How are you going to pay people back? Plan A, plan B, plan C. You have to be in control of that. You can't be counting on anybody else, okay? And I'm in some deals right now where that's really hurting me. The next thing I would say is be very clear about what you want and only do deals to get you to where you want. Just because it's a great deal doesn't mean it's good for you. I would be an absolutely horrible person to do a fix and flip right now. I'd be a much better person on structuring the loan behind that. Because I don't have a good crew of contractors right now. So don't ask me to do fix and flip. Can I do paperwork? Can I do title? Do I know title companies? Can I get deals closed? Absolutely. Can I find money with phone calls? Absolutely. So play to your strengths. Play to your strengths. So be clear about your vision. Know what it's going to take to get there. Play to your strengths to get there. And then the last two things are stay focused. Stay focused. We live in a hyperactive, shiny squirrel syndrome world.
Yeah.
You've got to stay focused. So you have to do those things that keep you grounded every day. For me, it's time in God's Word, time praying, and so on. And I have a core group of people that hold me accountable to certain things. And then I'm also accountable to sharing things with a group of people that I'm leading and discipling. Then the last thing I want to share is this. Under no circumstances do you quit for more than 30 minutes. You have to have this relentless refuse to quit mantra. It doesn't matter how hard it is, it doesn't matter how difficult it is, it doesn't matter how many times you've been told no, refuse to quit. Refuse to quit.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And I think the reason why a lot of people, newer investors, get into real estate investing is because it seems cool and it seems like an easy path to wealth. And then you know better than anyone that it's not an easy path to wealth. It is a path to wealth, but it's not easy.
Correct. Well, let me put it this way. It can be easy, but it's hard to do because it requires something that most of us don't want to do, which is the self-discipline of consistency, day after day, week after week, month after month, year after year. This real estate is not a way to get rich quickly. Real estate is not a way to get rich in 2 years or less. But my consolation comes from the fact that in the story of Aesop's fable, that ugly green tortoise won the race over the cute, cuddly little bunny. Slow and steady, persistence wins. And as long as you keep moving towards your goal, you're winning. And don't get distracted with everything else.
Yeah, and I think obviously we come from a different generation, and I think
True.
This newer generation watches a couple videos on YouTube and then thinks that they can become a millionaire overnight, and they have that.
Well, they're being sold that nonsense.
Yeah.
They're being sold that nonsense because the guy on YouTube needs the subscribers in order to have the income to come in and sell a course in order to make his payment.
Yeah.
You know, and yes, I sell information products, but I don't. You know, I tell you like it is. The way I would tell you is, get good assets. It may be a good cash flowing rental property. It may be performing notes. It may be a combination of the two. It may be licensing a business idea. It may be the co-ownership of a business that pays a that gets to the point where it's got a great employee staff and you start to take distributions out of it, which has finally come to be for me. And so those are some things to look at, but you've got to be focused and disciplined to say, okay, this will get me to my goal.
Right.
It's not a number of doors. It's not, thumping my chest and how much money did I make, because it's not how much you made, it's how much do you keep.
Yeah.
And are you thinking about the tax consequences of every deal that you're doing? I'm going to say that again. This is one thing my uncle pulled me aside. It was 1981, so I was still in high school. And he said, you need to understand about taxes.
That's so important.
And I spent the next, I bought a home study course on tax returns, and I saw where the magic happened on a tax return. It was on schedules E and D and C. That's where you could start hiding stuff. So I learned what to do there. And I've just kept studying and learning that. Now, am I a genius at it? No. Do I do tax returns? No. But can I hold an intelligent conversation with some really good tax lawyers? Yeah. And I think about what are the tax consequences of the deals that I'm doing, and then how can I reposition that deal to where my taxes go as low as possible, sometimes to zero.
Yeah.
So that's why I'm a huge fan of IRAs, particularly Roth IRAs.
Yeah, I know a lot of people that say they're doing really well in real estate investing, but when you look at their numbers, they're really not.
Balance sheets don't lie. Balance sheets don't lie, cash flow statements don't lie. There's a lot of people who have been living on the equity and pulling it out over the last 11, 12 years, and that freight train has come to a screeching halt.
Talk about over-leveraged.
They're over-leveraged, and this market is not done correcting. And there are people who, if they have not stopped borrowing, if they have not figured out how to generate income, if they've not learned how to actually correctly, properly manage their properties, then they need to begin repositioning those properties, maybe from a rental property with a barely break-even cash flow of $100 to $200 a month, which one AC going out or one roof hot water tank can take your whole year. They need to start thinking about how can I reposition that as a seller finance structure and double the cash flow and escape a lot of the responsibilities.
I'm glad you mentioned creative financing, because that's one of the things that I'm working with on, not just learning how to do it, but do it in a way where there's less risk. And I think with creative financing, there's a lot of upside, but there's also a lot of downside. What advice would you give to someone that's just getting started in creative financing?
The most powerful tool for a creative financer to use to acquire property is a master lease or a performance master lease with an option to buy. The way I structure it, I've nicknamed it the stealth subject to, because it gives you almost everything a subject to deal does, but without the risks. But I get control of the property, I get the appreciation, I get the amortization, I get the income, but I don't have the insurance issue, I don't have the due on sale clause issues, and I don't have the taxes and insurance in my name. And I'm not responsible for the big structural issues on that house. I'm getting the best and leaving the worst behind.
Yeah, I mean, that's a hack. I mean, there's a reason why I'm paying you to teach me, is because things like this.
Yeah, but you're learning from me what I've learned over 30 years.
Yeah. Shortcut.
Yeah,
there's a shortcut.
There's a shortcut. And so who you learn from matters. And I'm going to make this comment. One of the men I learned from, he's been dead 16 years, Jack Miller. You might have heard him talked about earlier this weekend.
I've heard him talked about many times this weekend.
So my attitude is, if you did not learn from Jack, or if you did not learn from someone who learned from Jack, you don't know Jack about real estate. I don't care who you watched lately. I don't care how young and smart they are in their marketing. They don't know Jack, because Jack Miller was the man. And he taught people like Bill Cook, Pete Fortunato, Dyke Spotiford, David Tilney, John Schaub, Leon Johnson, and some more that I'm embarrassed to not, Lyle Wall. These are men that are legends in the single family industry, and they don't have flashy, gaudy YouTube channels. They don't drive Maseratis. They don't have high overhead. They don't have publicists. They don't have book deals. They just have peace, freedom, and lots of cash flow.
Yeah. And I like hearing that, because a lot of times just because someone's a great marketer doesn't mean that they're the best person for you to look to for advice. And that's the mistake, is right now we're in a culture of attention. So if someone has attention, you automatically account that to credibility and being right, but it's not necessarily, it doesn't go hand in hand.
You're very, very wise to point that out. You're very, very wise to point that out. And that is something that people need to be aware of, is not everything that glistens is gold.
Yeah.
And just because somebody's saying, look at me, doesn't mean that they know what they're doing.
Yeah. Well, that's why I'm relying on people that are smarter than me, have more experience than me, to teach me the right ways.
And so one of the best questions that I would say to ask anybody, that if you're thinking about doing a deal with them, having them mentor you, learn from them, is ask them the question, tell me about some of the big mistakes you've made in real estate.
Oof.
And I could, you asked me that question, I tell you about a rehab that I did where I had a family member hook me for $100,000 on a single family house because I just didn't pay attention to stuff and it just didn't go well. I lost $100,000 on that house before it went to foreclosure. I could tell you some other boneheaded mistakes I've made. Sometimes I've chased a rate of return and not looked at the safety of my principal, and I'm dealing with an issue on that right now. Sometimes I've trusted people too much and made a decision to work with them because of who they are and the fact that I like them, and I ignored what I call the familiarity bias. Just because I like you and you're my friend, I need to be even more due diligent because I'm blinded.
Yeah.
And I may not see what I really need to see about that deal.
Yeah, and that's one of the reasons why I liked you and I was naturally attracted to you when I first heard you speak, is because you're very real and you're very honest and you talk about that. Like you said, if everything's too perfect, that means that it's BS because no one is perfect all the time.
Yeah.
We all lose money at some point, and it's important to know that as a newer investor. If someone's just telling you that they're great and they live in this world of perfection and making money, that's not the reality of it.
It's not the reality of it all. And if they're not consistently doing deals, then they're not making mistakes. Yeah. But it's the mistakes that have taught me the most. When I was trying cases on a regular basis, I sat down and analyzed 4 trials that I lost, looking at them from every aspect of who was my client, what did my client physically look like, what was the issues, how did the jury respond, what did I wear, what did I say, how was my expert, hundreds of questions like that. And then I'm proud to say that I fixed all of those broken things in my trial lawyering skills. And then I started winning. And then once I beat this one group of lawyers 3 times in a row, they would never go to trial against me anymore. They're like, whatever it takes to settle, we're going to settle with you because you've beaten our best 3 out of our office. We're not going to trial again.
Yeah, that's talks a lot about your character, because what happens with mistakes is some people either don't want to make them, so they live in this area of not wanting to take risks because they're scared of making mistakes, or when they do make a mistake, they're so hard on themselves that they can't get back up on the horse.
Right.
Yeah.
And I know people that way, and I'm sitting here smiling. I'm thinking of a friend of mine, dear friend of mine, Tom Kroll, and he just says, take massive imperfect action and then clean it up afterwards. And he's so right in that way.
Absolutely.
Take massive action, clean it up afterwards, be willing to admit your mistakes, be willing to learn from your mistakes, and keep on going.
Yeah, and that's how you stay in this business. Because if the first time you lose money or you don't make the right decision,
and
you give up, you're not going to be in it in the long run.
So never, ever, ever go all in on one deal. Never, ever go all in on one deal. Always have a backup. Always have a reserve fund. I don't care if you have to tell everybody else except your spouse and your kids. Tell everybody else and your spouse and kids, we're broke. We've got no money. And you still have $50,000 that only your spouse and your kids know about. I mean, if your kids if they're adults, then you can trust them. But don't ever go below a certain number so that regardless of what happens, that you don't have to do that deal because it's so skinny, but you don't need that $5,000 check. You can be like, wait for the next one.
Oof, that's so important. Because if you put all your money into one deal
and it goes bad,
then no, that's not a good
Been
situation.
There.
Yeah.
Been there.
You're speaking from personal experience.
I remember being on the phone with Home Depot, begging for an increase in my Home Depot line of credit so I could finish this rehab I lost $100,000 on.
That's hard. That's really, really hard.
Begging to borrow more money to lose it, but I had to finish the job.
Now, looking back at that experience, what do you think it did for you as a person and as a business owner?
It made me a lot tougher and smarter.
So even horrible moments like that.
But the other thing is it taught me so many things that I did wrong, and that I can look at people and say, ask me how I know. Don't do that. Ask me how I know.
You've lived it yourself.
Yeah.
Who better to talk about something like that?
So don't make my mistakes. Go make some new ones.
Yeah.
Go make some new ones, I had, earlier today I had an I told you so conversation with a client. She called me up and she said, gotta have that I told you so conversation. 3 years ago you said this was gonna happen, and she says, it's happened. And I said, well, you did about 60% of what I told you to do to prevent it, and now we can fix it off that 60.
Well, isn't that why people hire attorneys anyway, to clean up the mess?
Well, but hire me instead to avoid the mess.
Oh, no, people don't listen.
Buy the map to know how to drive to the destination rather than call the tow truck to get you out of the ditch.
I think most attorneys would be out of business if people weren't out there doing things they weren't supposed to do, so they're helping grow your business.
True, but I'll tell you, it's a whole lot more fun to do the deal at the front end with a good client than to fix it at the back end with anybody else.
Yeah, I bet.
It's just a lot more fun because the stress is a factor because the client's stressed out. I'm working with one guy right now to fix a problem that's 25 years in the making.
Jesus.
And it's probably going to take me 2 to 3 months to fix it.
Jesus.
I'm 3 months into fixing it right now. We're just about done.
Yeah, well, you're a good asset to have. And I appreciate any last minute words. What would you tell someone that wants to get started in real estate investing? What's like the number one piece of advice that you wish you had when you got started?
The number one piece of advice that I wish I had when I got started was get very incredibly clear about what your end goal looks like, what your perfect day looks like, what your perfect week looks like. Know what that costs you. That becomes your number. That becomes not some fanciful pie in the sky, I need $40,000 a month. No, you don't. What does it take to have a very nice home in a nice area with the ability to not have any payments, be able to give and live and save and invest, where the biggest thing you're stressing out over is what are we doing we going to the beach, we going to the pool, we going on a bike ride, we're going for a walk, what are we doing for lunch, what are we doing for dinner?
I love that.
And who am I giving back to and helping to today?
Yeah,
Those are my big
having
stressors.
Peace of mind.
Yeah,
Figuring
peace
out,
and freedom.
Yeah.
Peace and freedom.
That's what it's
Leon
about.
Johnson taught that to me, and I want to give credit to the men who I've learned from. Leon Johnson, Jim Ingersoll, Eddie Speed, Tom Kroll, Bill Cook, Pete Fortunato, the late Dykes Boddiford, David Tilney, John Schaub. I'm going to leave out some of them I know. Gary Johnson. Some of these men are just amazing human beings. And the part that gets me is you could walk past them in the grocery store and have no clue that they're multi-decamillionaires because they're just so down to earth, plain aw shucks people.
Well, that's how I feel about you. I'm glad that we got to meet in person, that we got to do this. How can people find you?
The best way to find me is a blog that I have. It's called WatsonInvested.com. Go to just www.watsoninvested.com, and then please sign up for the free email newsletter. It's free.
It's free, guys.
So it fits everybody's budget. I send it out twice a week. We've been doing it for about a dozen years now. I think more like 15. So we're starting to get good at it. Okay?
I'm sure you're great at it.
And I've got an amazing, fantastic assistant, and we're going to be doing that for another 4 years, and then she and I are both going to retire. So get that free email newsletter. There's archives on the blog, and then if you need to talk to me about an IRA, if you need to talk to me about an Ohio real estate deal, or if you got something that's really serious, you can book a consult with me off that website, and we can go from there.
Love it. Take advantage of that opportunity. There's free resources, and then this man is a wealth of knowledge. So thank you so much.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
All right.
Yay! You're awesome.
Thank you.